From the shadows, she appears. Jennylyn show, illuminates and tells me all yearn to know. With beats that pulse and sense that ignite, taking us to new heights.
Hello, you're watching Conversations with Jennylyn. And if you've seen my previous segment, you will know why I am on set by myself today. I produced a show last week that I shared that is not fiction, that is something that has happened in my life and continues to happen. It is very far-fetched and not a common type of story that you may have heard. And so I wanted to begin this segment by pointing out that the difference between the skeptic and the believer is the experience. So if you have difficulty believing what I'm sharing, it's very common, and I'm not here to convince anyone either way. This is my story, and I'm sharing it because I am hoping no other person should have to feel alone if they're going through something like this. If you are having these types of issues, please feel free to contact me, and I can point you in the direction. Saying this makes me feel like I've become an expert on a very strange type of topic and situation that I had no knowledge of for the majority of my life. But I guess that's why we are on this planet, so we can grow, evolve, and experience those lessons that are pertinent to us evolving into whatever the next course of this life is all about. So thank you so much for watching. And if you're watching the second segment, you've watched the first, and you're probably curious or just wanting to find out where this is going to go. So thank you again for following and watching me. Today, I wanted to backtrack a little bit and let you know why I'm doing this segment. I've called it my nightmare, and it's a story about an obsessive evil hater that currently is in my life, still doing things to try to stop me. I've learned her agenda was one, to leave me, well, based on what I've been told by almost every single person who has tried to help me, is that I should have a life of hell on earth, which is practically what it had been until I woke up to what is happening and to my own power. Evil exists, people. Evil exists. I will just start today's show by saying, because I was planning to do this segment last night, I had a very difficult night. And because I plan to write a book in which I will include all of the details, I don't want to put those types of details on this video. However, the name of this person, and I prayed about it, and I was told to be authentic as much as I can to keep the truth in this story. But I'm going to slightly substitute another name only because I want to protect myself. This person's name, I'm going to call her CasSandra with the last name T. So I will refer to her throughout the story as CasSandra T. Like I mentioned briefly in the last segment, was brought into my life through someone that I met. And in the book, you will find out who this person is and why she went on this vendetta to try to destroy me. The first thing that happened, like I mentioned last week, I had a basket left at my door. She showed up. The first thing that happened is she called and invited me to meet with her. And because I'm trusting, I decided that I would go meet with her. She called me up from every single public telephone in the area where I lived. And I couldn't figure out what her problem is and why she kept calling me. And then eventually, she made some accusations, which will be in the book. And then she asked me to meet with her. And I was going to go meet with her because I didn't know that evil existed on this level. And I couldn't imagine she wanted to have face to face contact with me because she had an agenda. However, some of my close friends called me up and said, "You're crazy. You cannot meet with her. She doesn't have any good intentions. We sense she's very evil." And so I canceled the meeting. And because I canceled the meeting, this person is really ballsy and kind of a bully. Because when I refused to meet with her in a coffee shop that she suggested, she showed up at my front door. I was on my way out to dinner. I was just about to jump into the shower when I heard my doorbell. So I grabbed a robe and I put it on, ran downstairs, thinking perhaps I had a delivery that I had to sign for. And I opened the door and I saw this strange looking woman. To be honest with you, I thought she was selling Girl Scout cookies or something. And I asked her if I could help her. And she told me what her name was and why she was at my door. And I gave her a hug and I told her that no one is worth putting yourself in a position where you are stalking someone. I told her that if I were she, I would not do it. It doesn't look good for her. And coming to me was not going to resolve any of her issues because I was not her problem. And I encouraged her to go home. But little did I know, she wanted me to open my door because she had an agenda. And I think at this time, when I opened my door, during the time I was standing there at the door, she was ushering invisible things that I could not see, which would later torment me. So it started back then. And I cannot tell you the number of times this person came to my door and I kept opening it, not knowing what was going on. So over the period of the first year, she came to my door many times, and one night, she rang my bell about 10:30, and when I opened it, she ran past me. I know this is difficult to believe, and I lived in a 2-story house, and she was on her way up to my bedroom. And I ran after her and I go, "What the hell do you think you're doing? Where are you going?" Mind you, I live alone. So she could not have been going to see anybody else. She had an agenda and the reason why she was going up to the bedroom. Every time she came to my house, the nightly demonic activity increased. And this is when I went to seek help. And I went to the Catholic Church. And like I mentioned last week, I consulted with Father Gary Thomas. You're welcome to look him up. He has written a book and he starred in a movie with Anthony Hopkins, a very popular movie that you should go and look at. In fact, I researched it and I had the name for you, but I forgot to bring the notes with me. But just look for the movie with Father Gary Thomas and Anthony Hopkins, and you will see the story that I'm talking about. And it's because I knew of that movie that I went hunting for this priest, found him, and was lucky. And on several occasions, he went to my home and tried to clear the things out that were in there. After 3 different attempts at my home, and then having me go to the church and meeting with a team of people who work on exorcisms, he told me he thought the best thing was to move from my home. that I lived in at that time because portals had been opened up in the yard. So as fast as he was removing them, it was perpetual. They were coming back. And this was part of her agenda. The other thing I started noticing is I would come home from work and there were things placed in my backyard that weren't there when I left in the morning or that I didn't put there. And nobody in the neighborhood really hung around my backyard. I locked the gate, I went to work, no one else on our street had these things happening. Things were left in my plants. I started to notice that whenever there was a full moon, the activity increased. In addition to the phone calls and the visits to my house, she started to follow me at the place where I worked. One day, I had opened a brand new business along with a friend in San Francisco. It was a medical cosmetics spa. It was a beautiful spa, which I and my partner created from scratch. One Saturday, I happened to walk outside, and she was standing outside of my clinic. I just thought it was so weird. And I got a little bit annoyed because I realized this person was really stalking me. So I said to her, it was a shopping center, so she had a right to be there. But I said hello to her. And then I said, yes, this is my clinic. Because she asked me if it was my clinic. And I said, yes, it was my clinic. And I told her, why don't you come in one day? We'll give you a complimentary facial. And I meant it in all sincerity. I was really offering her a facial. 2 days later, I went to work and I saw the most disturbing thing. As I inserted the key in the door to open it, because I usually got there before my staff every day. I was always the first one at work. I noticed, and I have to say the word because this is what it was, poop. You have never seen so much poop. No animal or human could poop that much poop at once. And suddenly I kept staring at it thinking, how could this be? How is this possible? It was stacked exactly where, when I turned the key and opened the door, exactly where the door opened. And it just sat with me because nothing about it was normal. And I kept trying to explain it, like, how did this happen? How is this possible? And I couldn't. So it sat with me for weeks and I kept thinking about it every day. I mentioned it to my staff when I came in and they asked me, why didn't you take a picture? And I go, taking a picture in that moment was the last thing on my mind. The only agenda I had was how was I cleaning it up? First thing in the morning, I'm ready for my day, and this is what I come to work to. I got some gloves and I cleaned it up, not knowing what I was cleaning up. I found out later I shouldn't even have touched it. I should have poured stuff on it first. But again, in my innocence, a lot of this stuff affected me dramatically simply because none of what was happening existed in my reality, in my realm. It was happening. There was no question. But I had no tools to cope with it because it was so off the wall. Anyway, later on, I started having a lot of issues in the clinic with my partner, a lot. And then one day, I was interviewing a plastic surgeon from Beverly Hills. Yes, a plastic surgeon from Beverly Hills. We were thinking of hiring him to do some procedures that could be done in the clinic. And while I was interviewing him, I almost fell off of my chair when he looked at me and goes, Jenny, you have a lot of entities running around this clinic that are working against you. And I go, what? He goes, yes, you have a lot of entities in here. Hold on, I'll go clear them for you. I am not making any of this up. I'd love to give you his name. You can check with him. He is still a plastic surgeon in Beverly Hills. And he walked out of our meeting and he went and cleared them out. But when he came back, he told me, Jenny, they're going to come back because someone has deliberately placed them here to close your business down. You can believe me or not believe me. I am not looking for believers. Like I said before, I don't care what anybody watching this thinks of me. I'm as sane as they come. I am merely relating what happened to me. And I'm telling you, because I have been told in my 15 years of trying to find myself help, I or inadvertently became educated because I learned so much that nobody would have taught me had I not found myself dealing with this and having to get rid of it. That in my attempts to get myself help, I got a full education in this world. And like I said in my previous video, sometimes we have things happen to us that we haven't chosen, but they're happening, and we have one choice. We either roll over and let this thing kick our asses and die, or we get up and fight. And that's what I am. To the bone, I'm a fighter, and I will win every single battle that comes my way unless I'm fighting God. Then I won't win if it's not the same battle, if I'm fighting against him. But I can sit here and proudly declare I will win every battle because I fight them with him. And because I fight them with him, and because I'm pure, and I do not do things like that, and it didn't even exist in my reality, I am not one of the people who will roll over and die. However, the clinic did end up closing down. And while I was trying to find help for things at the home, which got crazier with time, I found out that poop that I had encountered the morning that I did when I went to work was strategically placed there, that it was a ritual or a curse to close my business down. I think our business had potential for huge success. It's a very beautiful, or it was a very beautiful clinic, and the website is still up. So if you're so inclined, and if you didn't visit it, because most of my friends came to the clinic for services or just a visit, and so they can testify to the clinic. And when it shut down, a lot of people were shocked. And I have to tell you that I went into serious depression when it shut down because I lost my best friend and I lost the clinic at once. But this was all a part of the design by the evil CasSandra T and her team to destroy my life. I'm like a ball. The harder you crush me, the higher I come back up. So I hate to destroy the intentions of Miss CasSandra T because she can pay every penny she owns to pull me down, and it isn't going to happen. I would say at the initial stages of all of this, it had a really hard impact on me because I didn't know what was happening. I found myself in a severe depression, wondering why I was so weird. I was born with a gift that most people in my family couldn't understand. I knew things, I would tell my parents, and I always got things very clearly in my dreams. And one of them I'll share very briefly with you. Since I'm telling a story, I may as well share some of what's happened to help you understand. My younger daughter was interviewing for a job. She asked me to pray for her, so I did. Then she had a second interview. She asked me to pray for her again, and I did. Third interview, she goes, Mom, I really want to get this job. So this is my third interview. Can we pray? Can you pray for me again? And I told her, I'll pray for you, but God wants you to pray for yourself. And she goes, I am praying. I'm just asking you to pray with me. The night of her third interview, I dreamt that I saw she and two of her friends hugging and crying, and there were suitcases next to them. So I realized they weren't crying because something had happened to someone. They were crying because someone was going away. And this was very early in the morning. I woke up and I texted her and I said, when you get up, will you call me? And the first thing she asked when she woke up is, Mom, what did you dream? Because my children have grown up aware of the gifts that I've had, and they have experienced, things that I've dreamt, they've seen them happen. And the first thing she said when I told her the dream is, Mom, you are so weird. I did not want to tell you, but the job that I'm interviewing for is in another country. And in order to protect my children, I'm not listing names or countries. And I said to her, well, I cannot believe you had me praying for you to leave home and go so far away. Well, I want you to know the good news, you've got the job. Because God has just shown me in my dream that you are going. And 2 days later, she got the job. So this is just an example of the gifts that I have. And I don't know if this is why this situation or I was chosen to go through this ordeal that I'm now calling the evil hater, the story I'm telling you, my nightmare, the evil hater. I think the other reason that it has happened, other than the fact that this person truly hates me, and I couldn't tell you why, that I would be honest, that I would have the balls, and I jokingly tell my friends I have more balls than a bingo machine, and I truly fear nothing and no one, that I would tell the story honestly, and I would not be afraid of judgments, that I would be my most vulnerable in order that I tell the story authentically and truthfully, because these things that have happened, I did not bring them on myself, but they happened and they're happening. And this week, I just wanted to share this portion of it. I don't want the segments to be so long that you burn out listening to the story that's not very positive. But I wanted to share what happened with my business, why it was shut down. And in case any of you ever had an experience like this, I was told I was not supposed to touch that stuff, even though I use gloves and I use utensils. You're supposed to pour pepper or whatever on it so you break whatever energy it's bringing, but I didn't know. So that you don't do what I did and prevent yourself from suffering the repercussions I suffered in my innocence. I sit before you telling these stories thinking, this is not my claim to fame. This is not me trying to show you that I've overcome something fabulous. But this is to say, this is a part of our world that victims are afraid to share because they're afraid of judgments. I have read many articles. I have watched many videos. I have listened to stories where people have died because this dog has power if you let it. I was also told that if you practice this type of stuff, when it's done to you, it will take you down. But because I don't go there and have no desire to, I've never attempted to return anything to anyone. I always just ask God to remove it. I think that plus my tenacity, my determination, my courageousness, my ballsiness is what is leading to my victory, because I will be victorious. This person is relentless. Last week, I no sooner posted the video, and this is how I know she watches everything I do. After doing that first segment, I was so emotional. I put my tennis shoes on and went to the park and sat by the water. And while I was there, I was attacked. Next segment, I will share the squirrels that have been used many, many times, at least for 15 years, to where I can't stand squirrels now. Because I was told these people have the ability to inhabit the body of any animal and control them. And in my next segment, I will share some of the things that these squirrels did that you won't believe. And unfortunately, before I moved from California, I had a lot of footage, a lot of pictures and videos of things that happened. And I didn't even know I was collecting it because I would be tasked with putting this in the form of a book. I just took them to show my friends, because when I would tell them on the phone what was happening, they had such difficulty believing it. I had to get the photographs to send to them. Eventually, I was told to put a camera on the front of my house, because when I went to work, this woman herself, or people who worked for her, usually if she went to my house, it would be very late in the evenings. But a lot of my evenings were spent at the television station where I produced my TV show. Because in addition to producing my show, I do everything in television production. I direct, I work camera, I do everything. And so if I weren't producing a show, I was still at the TV studio working on someone else's show. So I was not at home a lot. And in my absence, apparently, my neighbors and various people have seen this woman in my yard doing things, either walking away from my house or hanging around bushes in the front of my house, to where I was advised to have a camera put up on the house, installed on the house, so that it could record what happened when I wasn't home. She showed up at my front door one day, and I told her I was going to report her to the police because she was harassing me. She was calling me on the phone, every phone, the public library, the grocery store, her work. I had a list of all the places she'd called me from because I saved the phone numbers. And when you called them back, it was a grocery store or something. So I told her that I had made a report to the police because I was tired of the harassment. And at this point, I knew she was coming to my house with an agenda to leave things to create havoc in my home and life. And after I told her this, she sent other people. Because a lot of times, if my camera didn't pick it up, my neighbor's camera would pick up Chinese people, because this is a Chinese woman planting things in my yard. At this point of the interview, I want you to know that everywhere I go, people think I'm Chinese. In China, they speak Chinese to me. The Japanese think I'm Chinese. The Filipinos think I'm Chinese. And so I don't know if that's the reason I was targeted. There are a few reasons why I think I was targeted. And in the book, you can read those. But After telling her that I had reported her to the police and installed a camera on my home, things got very ugly. But I think for today, I want to end it here. And then next segment, I can tell you the next phase of what happened. I'm not necessarily telling it segmentally. We're talking about 19 years. And unfortunately, when I moved to New York, I lost some of the footage because I changed cell phone carriers and didn't realize I would lose the information I had stored on my cloud. But before I go today, this is what I want to say to Miss Cassandra T and your team, because I know you're watching me. Before you attack me, know that I'm built for this. I am more than demons. I have been played, stabbed, cheated on, taken advantage of, and left crying on the cold floor. My name has been dragged through the mud and dirt a number of times, and every time I have picked myself up and come out clean. I have passed the worst moments of my life alone. You see, I am self-made, built for war. The pain has shaped me the best. And you cannot destroy a woman like me, but instead, you will destroy yourself. Again, I am forgiving you. I understand you've come from a family that practiced this, so it's probably the only thing you knew. But from one woman to the next, hatred is not a healthy emotion. I can only pray for you, but you need to know you cannot and you will never destroy me. And so I send you love, forgiveness, and light, and hope you find peace. Like I said at the beginning of the show, the difference between the skeptic and the believer is the experience. And what I have experienced, when you've heard it all, you will wonder. Because even when the priest ran out of my house, and even when in the middle of the night, pictures were being ripped out of my walls and it was sounding like the roof was caving in, I stayed in my bed and clutched my Bible, which always slept beside me. And I just knew that this would not break me. If you're watching the show and you want to reach out to me because you're having these types of experiences, I am no expert, but I know lots of experts. And I will tell you, the one thing that got me through this is knowing that nothing, no dark, can put out light. And if you're truly light, and if you've lived a life of wanting to help other people and making them better, even the times when you hurt them, it's because you're looking out for them and they just don't see it, then nothing will break you. And I thank you so much for watching Conversations with Jennylyn. When a conversation is all you need to be inspired, and although these segments might not inspire you, they may enlighten you. And that is my hope. And I will see you soon with the next segment. Thank you.
From the shadows, she appears. Jennylyn Show.